What's up guys, Ruppy here, bringing you my Week 5 team builder for the A-Drive Army Battle League, as my still undefeated Columbus Swoo face probably our most daunting challenge yet. And it comes from a source that you probably wouldn't expect if you didn't see the team and just heard the record. My 4-0 Columbus Swoo this week are playing the 0-4 Omaha Omastars, coached by Fausti. And if you just hear the record, as I said, you probably wouldn't think you'd probably think I was trying to pull some kind of belated April Fool's prank on you guys or something. But look at this team he's got. Look at how nasty this team is. I'm kind of questioning his record a bit, considering this is the team he's got. Let's go ahead and run it down quick, shall we? So first off, he has Mew, which, as most of you know, Mew generally is a mon that is very much sought after in draft format, because this thing is the very definition of jack of all trades, master of none. Base 100 stats across the board, like all the other mythical Pokemon. This thing can do a lot of things. It can be defensive, it can be specially offensive, it can be physically offensive. It can set hazards, it can remove them. Mew can do a lot of things. So, realistically, trying to prep for Mew is actually a bit of a challenge, just because of the fact that it's near impossible to know exactly what this thing is going to do. Off the top of my head, I want to say if he brings Mew, which I'm honestly half expecting him to, he's probably going to at least run some kind of Psychic type move for offense, solely because otherwise, this thing is probably not going to get past my Mega Venusaur, but it's hard to really tell. Basically, when I play this game, I'm going to have to deduce what this Mew set is and get it taken care of accordingly. But as soon as I see like 2 or 3 moves off of it, I should have a good idea of what kind of set it is and be able to go from there at least. Togekiss is equal parts non-factor and threatening to my team. Basically, Togekiss can serve a number of roles as well. It can use Air Slash to flinch people. I know my Jirachi's probably kind of laughing at that, but that's why the two hand in hand are generally a problem for people. I did not have a place for Togekiss on my team, so meh. It has access to Flamethrower. Obviously, it gets Fairy type stab. It can Roost, it can be a bit bulkier, it can be a Cleric and run Heal Bell. I do believe this thing also gets access to Defog if I recall correctly, so there's another hazard remover on his team. Heliolisk is actually a recent addition to him, and when I saw this move, I could almost swear in the back of my mind he picked up Heliolisk specifically for this game. Because, let's be honest, my team is a team that is basically rain offense, that doesn't necessarily, well, it's a rain team that doesn't necessarily require rain to function properly. Well, rain helps it function at its fullest potential, but doesn't necessarily need rain, I guess is the best way I can put it. And just because of Heliolisk's presence, I'm not bringing rain this week. Plain and simple. But even still, I'm almost guaranteeing he's going to bring Heliolisk on the off chance I do bring rain. Just because Dry Skin and being a fast electric type just makes Heliolisk such a pain to deal with. I mean, you can put specs on it and it can hit you really hard. If you guys have seen my videos from the Grand Pokemon League, you would know that I have been the victim of a Normalium Z Heliolisk in the past. So that is something I'm going to have to keep my eyes peeled for. Dragalge could also be an issue. Dragalge is a bulky wall breaker. That's the big thing about his team. He has a few mons that can serve as defensive walls / tanks, but he has a ton of wall breakers. And I have good defensive mons, but I don't have the best defensive mons to try and basically outbulk his wall breakers. That's the biggest problem I found when trying to team build for this game. Dragalge is definitely a problem because there are a few things it could do. A Draco Meteor from this thing, if it's running adaptability, will definitely hurt. If he's running a flat-out wall breaker set with specs, there are very few things on my team that can actually live a Draco Meteor. My best bet to live one would basically be for this thing to be at -2. Which, obviously, he can easily switch around to fix that issue, and that obviously creates a lot of problems for me. If he's a more defensive-ish set and runs Black Sludge instead, that's much more manageable at least. But if he spies the potential of the Wall Breaker set, then he's probably going to bring it against me, is the thing, because I would not put that past him. Cavalier causes me all sorts of problems. This thing's got some bulk to it. It's Bug Steel. It mostly depends on what kind of set he brings. If he tries to run this thing banded or somewhat more offensive in any fashion, it can punch huge holes in me, but I can take advantage. The thing about Cavalier is that it's slow, which I can definitely take advantage of. If it's an Assault Vest set, it can take some of my hits a lot better, which is kind of concerning. But I do have mons that can deal with it. It's just a matter of keeping them in reserve if he brings Cavalier, and I'm half expecting him to, because Cavalier has the potential to put in so much work against my team if he catches me in a bad spot. Serena doesn't necessarily do much to me, and I do have a lot of things that can do stuff back to it. Really, if he brings Serena, it would only be for 2 reasons off the top of my head. Using Drop Kick to try to get attack drops on any of my physical sweepers, and being a Rapid Spinner to take the pressure off of the likes of Mew and Togekiss. Because Mew, Togekiss, and Serena are his 3 forms of hazard control. They're all good forms of hazard control, but if I can force them into positions where they have to use the move they have to remove hazards, it basically buys me a free turn to get myself in a good position, which is basically part of the plan I'm trying to execute if he brings any hazard removers. He has 2 forms of, well, actually 3 hazard setters, but I have a plan for that. Moving on, he has a Stoutland, which I'm not really expecting to bring, just because I think Stoutland's really only here for if he runs into anyone who happens to have sand he can abuse Sand Rush with. Because honestly, Stoutland and his Mega kind of serve to some degree the same role, so Stoutland kind of seems useless. It can lay a hurt on my team if it runs Choice Band and comes packing. Well, I think Stoutland gets Intimidate. That could be problematic, but I'm really not expecting him to bring Stoutland, mostly because what it does to my team is actually done even better by his Mega. The ever-dreaded Megalopony. And I don't think I need to say too much about what Megalopony can do. This thing, basically, it's ridiculously fast, and it hits like a Mack truck. That's all that really needs to be said about this thing. End of story. Megalopony is a major problem for me, just because it outspeeds my entire team, and can punch a lot of holes in a lot of things if it comes in when I'm in a bad position. I do have some plans for dealing with it, but they're basically going to require me to try to work around whatever he brings. Landorus Incarnate is also on his team, which is just even more power. Thankfully, we have decided that we basically went with the GBA option of we'll allow Landorus Incarnate, but it's not allowed to run Sheer Force. So it has to run Sand Force, and thankfully he has no Sandstorm to abuse. Unless, well, he could pull it out just to try to surprise me maybe with a Mon. But honestly, Landorus still hits me ridiculously hard. But sitting at a base 101 speed, I do have Mons that outspeed it and can deal with it. At the very least, wear it down. It's not going to appreciate rocks either, so it will get worn down to a position where I can easily take it out with something else. I do have the Mons that can put it out of commission, but the first thing I want to do with Landorus is deduce if he's going to try, if he brings it, is to try to run, if he's trying to run it Scarfed against me or not. That's going to be the key for that. Araquanid, hard hitter, rather bulky, water bug type. Depending on what kind of set he brings, it could put in some work against me. Liquidation definitely causes me a few headaches if he gets a few defense drops in. But I think Araquanid is at least manageable compared to what I'm bringing. Especially since it is a slower mon and I can take advantage of it. Rhyperior is a problem just because, well, if he's running a more tanky set that's basically serving as his rock setter, I can deal with it, but I'm gonna have to eat a hit or two in the process and just figure out where to go from there, is basically the thing. A bandit set I can deal with a lot easier, or any like more offensive set. If he actually brings if he brings a rock polish set, that could cause me a few problems. But I think I can tank some hits from that thing and go from there. The last mon he has is Kecleon, which has actually been quite a bit of a pain for some of the teams he has faced this season. Just because of really, the main thing he's been doing with Kecleon is abusing priority in pretty much every form imaginable. I mean, this thing gets Fake Out, it gets Sucker Punch, it gets Shadow Sneak. When you tack on the Protean ability on top of that, so it's always getting a stab hit off, Kecleon is just a pain. And I can almost see him bringing it just because abusing priority to try to keep me from basically executing my game plan. Now, I am not super happy with my team this week. It's a bit of an iffy team build, I'll say that. Basically, my game plan boils down to one thing, and that's trying to take advantage of the same strategy that 3 out of the 4 teams that have beaten him in the past have basically abused, because it is kind of a flaw with his team. It's a very solid team, I'll give him that. And it does have a lot of very powerful wall breakers and just powerhouses in general. And he does have a few pretty good walls too. The biggest problem his team has had, though, is contending with mons that can outspeed his entire team and basically pick him off from there. 3 of the 4 games he has lost have been because there has been at least one mon that has come in, set up, outsped everything, and been able to do more than enough damage to clean house. And that's basically my game plan for this week. So let's go ahead and get into my team, and I'll show you what I'm going to try to do to capitalize on that. Starting with the return of Master Feng. He took a few weeks off to go back to the Shaolin Temple and train, since I unfortunately haven't really needed his services the past few weeks. But he's back this week, and I feel he's going to be a big help to this game. I'm back to running the Scarf Reckless set. I toyed with a few different options I wanted to run, but honestly, Scarf Reckless Mindshao is what feels like my best bet for winning this game, or at least doing what I need it to. High Jump Kick, U-Turn, Knock Off and Stone Edge, Max Speed with a Jolly Nature, Max Attack. Basically, the main reason I ultimately decided I was going to run Adamant for the extra power, and also potentially forego Reckless for Regenerator to try to abuse getting Mindshao some extra health back. And I even toyed with using a Life Orb over Choice Scarf. But to be perfectly honest, Mindshao outspeeds everything on his team naturally, barring Megalophony. But the one mon I was really looking at was his Landorus, because Master Feng might be able to get in the hits I need to help wear down that Landorus and potentially deal with it. And if he's running a Scarf set, the only way Mindshao outspeeds it is running Jolly Scarf, which obviously kind of limits me a bit, but I'm not going to complain just because Reckless High Jump Kick, if it doesn't outright kill a lot of his things, it severely dents them. Probably the only things that are an exception to that rule are Mew, Togekiss, and Araquanid, really. They can take Reckless High Jump Kicks decently, but I have Knockoff and U-Turn to contend with Mew, and I have Stone Edge to plow through Togekiss and Araquanid. Landorus can take hits from Master Feng, but especially if I can get rocks up, Landorus is not going to appreciate taking hits from Master Feng in the long run. Especially if it comes in on rocks and eats a hit on the way in, then I'm actually kind of free to probably take it out depending on what move I'm locked into. Kecleon is going to take a bit of prediction if he brings Shadow Sneak, and I'm half expecting him to put Shadow Sneak on that thing solely because of Master Feng and the possibility I could bring him. Just because if he uses Shadow Sneak, he'll be able to turn into a Ghost type and abuse the priority to get a hit off on me. He'll turn into a Ghost type before I can land a hit, and then High Jump Kick is basically going to be doing more damage to me than anything else. So I gotta be a little wary with the Kecleon. I need to basically deduce whether or not he is packing the Shadow Sneak, or if he's just gonna rely solely on Sucker Punch as his priority. But I still think Master Fung can put in a lot of work for this game, outspeeding everything, landing huge hits, punching holes in things, if not outright killing them, and going from there. I have mentioned rocks a couple of times, and that's where Emeth is coming into play this week. I'm running the same set I did last week with one slight move change, running full specially defensive with leftovers, just by nature of a relatively decent 105 base defense stat, and the fact that it does resist. To some degree, Emeth can take on Mega Lopunny. It's not a favorable matchup for me, but Emeth would be able to live a fake out and even a return, and be able to at least smack the thing with a Psy Shock fairly nicely. But Emeth's main point of being here, other than tanking his special hits, is set up rocks and keep them off my side of the field. Because keeping momentum on my side is how I'm going to win this game. And Emeth may seem like a momentum breaker a bit for me, but Earth Power and Psy Shock do land relatively decent damage, even off of only 4 special attack EVs and Emeth's base 70 special attack stat. But the fact of the matter is, they do decent damage and help chip away at everything, which is kind of part of my plan here. If I can get rocks up and keep them there, it's going to wear his team down considerably, and keeping rocks off my side of the field is going to be crucial for my endgame plan here. Next up, I am going to bring Herbivore, even though I know he has things that could cause me some problems. Mew gets Psychic, Togekiss can get Air Slash, but obviously it's not going to appreciate taking Sludge Bombs in the process. Landorus unfortunately gets Psychic, and I would not be surprised if he actually runs that. Dragalge, more of a wall breaker set, can punch holes in Herbivore with a Draco Meteor as long as it's not hasn't already had a special attack drop. But other than those few potential problems, Herbivore is kind of key to this game for being able to tank hits and especially be a big answer to Mega Lopunny. And basically just do what it does best. Sit in there, wall things, land hits, wear things down, and just not die. Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Synthesis, HP Fire, basically my usual affair, my usual EVs. You've all seen this thing time and again by now. You know what it does. I'm going to need to play a bit more carefully this game because of the threats he does have, but I think I can pull that off. Moving on, Mabel the Jirachi is going to come this week once again. Good old Mabel, because everybody loves Mabel and her craziness. And I am getting a bit crazy here because I'm running a far more offensive Jirachi than what I've run in past weeks. The big issue I have with Jirachi for this game is basically 4 move slot syndrome. There are a ton of moves I wanted to run for this game, but I can only pick 4, so I picked the 4 that I think are going to work best for Mabel compared to the other mons I am planning on bringing. And you probably noticed that I have a Choice Scarf on Mabel as well. Yeah, I am running dual Scarfers this week. That might sound like a bit of an insane idea, but I'm rolling with it just because of the fact that, as I said, mons that are able to outspeed his entire team and punch holes in things and just grind them down is basically how he has lost the past few games. Three of his first 4 games, and I need to strike while the iron's hot to try to capitalize on that same strategy. I'm running Iron Head, Fire Punch, U-Turn, and Zen Headbutt. That's basically the best overall coverage I have for everything. I wanted to run Ice Punch too, but plain and simple, I need Fire Punch on Rachi, so it's not walled by the likes of Escavalier and to some degree Serena as well otherwise. I mean, Ice Punch could have hit that thing too, but if he brings Escavalier, I cannot afford to have that thing walling me to death. I mean, I know I could just U-turn out, but it depends on what I'm locked into, really. But Mabel and Master Fung are a dual Scarf U-turning core for me, and joining that core with the Volt Switch antics for the first time since week 1 where it really just let off the game and didn't get to do anything, I'm bringing Super Saiyan back, my Jolteon. This time around, I'm running a Life Orb set. I'm also running Adamant on Mabel, by the way, because honestly, with the Scarf, probably the only other thing that would outspeed Mabel, even running Adamant with that Scarf, would be if he runs Scarf Landorus, which is what I need to decipher if that thing is Scarf or not. But basically, Adamant allows Mabel to get some stronger hits in on things and turns a few 3-hit KOs into potential more likely 2-hit KOs, basically. Super Saiyan's kind of the same scenario. I'm running modest max special attack and max speed. Again, same scenario. Without a Scarf of its own, Jolteon is outsped by Mega Lopunny anyway, so that's something I really can't deal with. The only way that doesn't happen is if he's not running max speed on that thing, or if he's running an Adamant one, which since I'm running modest Super Saiyan, Mega Lopunny's gonna outspeed regardless now, unless he's not max speed, but what can you do? And Super Saiyan is gonna outspeed Landorus as well, unless it's Scarfed, but if I can get rid of the Scarf, that would be very beneficial. That's another role I'm hoping Master Feng will be able to fulfill. Try to catch him with a knockoff on the way in. But relatively standard fare for Super Saiyan despite all that. I'm running Volabsorb as the ability to kind of hinder his Heliolisk a bit more than anything else. I don't really see him trying to spread status through my team because, as we have seen in the past few weeks, status really is kind of a non-factor against my team for the most part. Spreading some burns around would kind of suck for my physical sweepers, but I think it can be manageable because really, I'm just trying to get everything in place for what I'm hoping will be the real star of the show to come in and clean up at the end anyway. Thunderbolt, Signal Beam, HP Ice, and Volt Switch. I'm running Signal Beam as opposed to, say, Shadow Ball, just because of the fact that Signal Beam, really the only reason I could have used Shadow Ball was for the likes of Mew. But honestly, Signal Beam hits it relatively hard as well. A little, not as hard as Shadow Ball, but it still hits pretty hard. It's only 5 points weaker in power. But Signal Beam also gives me a strong hit on the Serena. It gives me a much stronger way to hit the Heliolisk to try to beat that thing in a one-on-one battle if it has to boil down to that. Thunderbolt and Volt Switch is obvious just for fast momentum, trying to keep that in my favor. And it hits everything barring the Landorus and the Rhyperior anyway. Thunderbolt hits things really hard as well. Just really powerful stab. HPI is obviously kind of for the Rhyperior, more so for the Landorus. If he's not Scarf or if I get rid of the Scarf, Jolteon can outspeed and put that thing out of commission with HP Ice, which definitely works. The real star of the show here, assuming I pull this off correctly, is once again Jasper. Jasper, plain and simple, is my late game cleaner. I have to run Jolly Max Speed on this thing because otherwise, after a Dragon Dance, Jasper does not outspeed Mega Lopunny, which is very concerning to me. And I would also love for it to be able to outspeed Landorus as well if it's Scarf, just because of the fact that, well, actually if it's Scarf, it would still outspeed me, but I can cross that bridge when I come to it. That's for the battle to figure out. But Dragon Claw, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, D-Dance is my set. I'm running the Dragonium Z, because honestly, at +1, even at +1, Dragon Claw does not kill things, and I didn't feel comfortable locking myself into Outrage, not because he has a few things that can take it, actually. Togekiss is obviously immune, Escavalier can eat it up, to some degree Rhyperior can too, but basically, Dragon Claw still does have enough power to get the job done in most cases, and for basically, this is all going to boil down to relatively the same thing I pulled last week. Grind things down, wear everything out, and then once everything has basically been dented, Jasper comes in at an opportune moment, sets up a Dragon Dance, and proceeds to basically clean up. That's basically Jasper's role this game, cleanup duty. As I said, Dragon Claw still hits everything relatively hard, and with the Dragonium Z, I will be able to fire off a devastating Drake that will, at +1, obliterate pretty much everything not named Togekiss. Especially if I've got rocks up and can manage to keep them there to help wear him down. That's really gonna help. Fire Punch, obviously, for the Escavalier. A little less the Serena because I'm running Ice Punch too. Ice Punch is really only there for Landorus and to some degree the Rhyperior as well. But really, barring those few things, Jasper comes in, sets up a Dragon Dance, and then clicks D-Claw and just tears through everything, is basically the plan. This is going to be a tough game, I'm not going to lie. Because this is a tough team to build against, and there are a number of different things he could bring against me. Because I do not have the walls to outmuscle his wall breakers, and some of his defensive things can actually give me a bit of a headache. It's all going to boil down to figuring out seeing what mons he brings, and figuring out what he's going to run with them. But I'm going to stay optimistic, and we're going to see what happens. I have become relatively notorious for being able to pull off some pretty good mid-match strategy, so hopefully that will work in my favor again this week. So, with all that said, thank you guys so very much for watching. I have been Ruppy, and I will see you guys next time when we get this game started. Take care.